from an education point of view, they seem to be complacent with what they got. They're sitting back and they say, well, it's always about the reo. It's not about just the reo. It's about what's happening for the future. It's about the political environment we're in, the challenges that we have with parties, different parties. Today is getting worse. I mean, it seems that way. It seems like that. This is what's happening now. What's the future going to be like, and what's your role in the future for us? Because why do you think that we started the Kura? It was to create people with the mind, who could speak fluently and challenge the governments of the day. It's not just about learning te reo. It's learning how they can make an offer back to the tribe about the future.
Nau mai, haere mai ki tēnei noho tahi, tēnei ui e pāna ki te toru tekau tau maharatanga e pāna ki te tutuki o tō tātou nei kremi o te take Raupatu, nō reira tēnā kōrua. Thank you for coming along to have a little bit of a kōrero and share in reflections on the 30 years since we've reached settlement, and in particular, the leadership role that you played over the duration of that time. But I want to take you back to Rāhui Pōkeka and Huntly and the role that you played pre-settlement in terms of the Huntly Power Station and what was happening at the time, and moving through into those early years of getting some of the thinking together around what it would take to get ourselves in a better place.
Kia ora nānai. Yeah, well, if I can remember, in 1972, I came back from China and your father came to see me. Robert Mahuta came to see me and asked me, oh, we got a problem in the community. I said, oh, what's that? He said, we got a power station coming. I said, oh, well, who's given the authority? And that was the issue. No one gave me the authority to build a power station that I know of, that we're having a power station. And at least so that was the first time I met your father, when he came to see me in 1972. And from then on, there was these amazing developments was taking place by people who I had a relationship over the many years, especially amongst the trust board members. But in particular in Rāhui Pōkeka, whether at Te Marae, Hera, Tūmate, Sati, Nelson, they were outstanding people and your father who brought us together to talk about the challenges we were about to face. And I was very pleased to be part of that journey with all of them. So, there was difficult times for us actually, because at the time the government didn't ask us if there was all right to bring a power station. They were going to do it anyway. So that was my first, I suppose, meeting with your dad. And of course there was all those other developments was going on. The Waihi Park development that was taking place, that we wanted to build Muria Tekakara. That was another challenge that we had. And amongst all that, there were many people that came from all around the world, just to help it. Ken Egan comes to mind when he put the Tainui report together. And he was an extraordinary man to work with, actually, because your father and I had a long way, and we had some very good, hard discussions, hard developments going on. So that came in often. But it was discussion we had at the time. But to bring those people to us and to start to learn about what was going on in the country, because politically we weren't really up to it, especially some of us, we just allowed things to happen without getting too much involved with the political arena. It wasn't until we had people from around the world, actually, that came. There was Ken Egan, there was Corinne Woods, there was Tun Van Maal, there was a lot of others that came to us, and each one made a contribution to the community. And so I was very pleased with what was going on at the time, challenging as it was. And then there was this discussion about who would represent us in the area of the Tami Māori Trust Board. because my grandfather, Oripaki, was one of the first. And what was interesting about that, it was Tumata that was supposed to have that seat, because he told me, he said, "Oh, I gave that seat to your grandfather." I said, "Oh." So, that was a nice discussion I had with Tumata, because that was the kind of person he was. He always was in the background, but he was always in the forefront.
But you went into the trust board
Yes.
to contribute
Yes,
at the time, eh?
at the time. So it was all that. There was others before me. I think Toko was in there for a while, but it was after them that I became a part of the board.
Can you remember some of the issues that the board was working on at the time when you joined?
I was trying to remember a lot of the things, but what he had a team of people that I thought was outstanding. Ding Dong Bell. I think he came from the Murray Land Court. It was obvious that he was in his team. I forget his first name.
Bunny Bell.
Bunny Bell. And it was a smart move because he knew where all the lands were. So your father brought him in. And I said, "Who the hell is this guy?" So it wasn't till a while after it started to click. Oh, and there was Isla Nottingham. She was an outstanding secretary of some kind.
Jim Ritchie.
Jim Ritchie.
Oh, yeah.
Was professor. So he had a team of people that brought us together. He brought us together to start to look at what we could do to challenge the crowd that was coming at us big time.
There were two areas I think that you had influence on that became learning points. One was in the area of education and one was in the area of health. If I take you to health and Corin Wood coming into the community, what did you learn from her health perspective that helped shape some of the things you wanted to see for the Wāhi community?
But see, I want to just go back to China for a moment. And in China, I saw what they call the community foot doctors. So doctors that looked after a particular community. That was my first understanding. I said, "Gee, that sounds a good idea to get our own people doing the health services in our community." And Corin was the one that created that for us. She nominated Ram and Tutata. So probably I would just want to pass the ball over there to talk about. She can talk about it. But one of the people that came behind us at the time was Paparangi Reid, Lorna Dial,
Pat
Nutter. So all of them were behind it, and behind that was Corin Sherwood putting the plan together and bringing these other people behind us. Yeah, that was a real good move.
So can I move to you, Auntie Ram, in terms of Corin's role and what you learnt from her and the kinds of conversations you were having around community health?
Yeah, kia ora, and I very privileged to married into the tribe, but I remember Dad coming around and knocked on the door and there was this beautiful old elderly Pākehā lady, and it happened to be Corin. And he said to me, "I just want to know if you can take care of her. She's here. She's a medical anthropologist and she wants to move around the community." And I thought, wow. I had a little bit of research on myself of what, health was, how we saw health to be. And here was this amazing lady who actually became very, very close. And Corin, of course, was able to give that global perspective. And what a privilege it was for myself, Tūtata, Mary Rotana, Te Poia Haunui, Mary Ripi, and dare I say, Weka Totarewa, who her and I are still around. So we formed and started the Māori Women's Welfare League at that time. That was sort of a sanctioned by Te Ata, and then we moved on into Hauora Health. But behind it all was Corin, and it was Dad's vision of seeing that being a part of. And of course, I think at that time the Māori, the Tainui Health Plan was being done, or being interviewed around the Tainui. And so we were just the women at home upping Corin and her endeavours, and and we learned so much, and what a privilege that was.
Yourself and Auntie Tūtata Matatahi were the first marae-based health nurses
Yes.
in those early years. What were the types of things you were doing amongst the whānau?
Well, I think at that time, to work within the system, we were given the title of health assistant to the nurses in the town, and Corin sort of had a different perspective on it. She thought that we should be seen rather as a part of inviting the community to be a part of what the vision was, that, you know, we could take care of our own health and well-being as opposed to just being door openers. And so we had two perspectives, and that's how we got involved with Dr. Paparangi Reid, who's now, I think, a professor. But and the other one, of course, was Lorna Dial and Pat Ngata, who were very much in the background, but they could see us looking at how best we could look at what was termed then as Māori health, which wasn't on the agenda.
It was interesting because Pinniket was the medical officer up in Hamilton, and he said that stethoscopes in the hand of Māori women was dangerous when we started it. I tell you, and him and I had a very good discussion about that. A very good discussion.
Well, when you think about the health challenges at the time, I think it was diabetes and obesity. And as health nurses, what were the types of changes you tried to, or you promoted amongst our communities that kind of got you offside with your own community, I suppose?
Well, I think at the time the system, the government of the day thought that we would be there to look for head lice and to look at scabies. And we thought, no, we were going to be there to offer more. And so Corin was all about you are what you eat, and about some of the practices that had been taken away from us as Māori. So it was pretty difficult. So we were in a very colonised system, but we were sort of being pulled one way, which was what Dad was wanting and what the vision was, that we'd take care of our own health and well-being. And so while the real issues of the day physically was diabetes and high blood pressure and various other diseases, we were really looking at how do we put ourselves on the page to look at the Māori perspective, and how was that going to be? I mean, whatever nationality you were, you'd had diabetes, it didn't matter. But really, how did we deal with it in of being Māori? You know, do we look at our rongoa? Do we say this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we would design our well-being, rather than being told, you know, with the Western medical science? And so I think we've moved a little bit further on from that.
We certainly have, and you've done quite a lot of work in the health field. Can I just fast forward you to initiating the model of Raukura Hauora, and kind of how everything at a community marae level then moved to kind of a health service model, and then aligned to the iwi?
Yeah, Raukura Hauora was one of the first Māori providers in the country. It was based around, you know, community coming together and the tribe coming together to set a system up, a health system up, that would look after the tribe itself, actually. And Corin Sherwood was one of those ones that helped us to develop that plan and to drive Raukura to where it is now, actually. So, yeah.
But you had other international relationships that you forged yourselves, like with the Nuka model, and those types of relationships. What was it about those international Indigenous kind of experiences that you believed was absolutely going to work for the tribe?
So when we went over to Alaska, it was one of the areas that we learnt a lot from those ones that were over there. And the Nuka system was a good example, and both Ram and I went over to have a look at that system. And it was fabulous. The reasons why I liked it, it was for Alaskans by Alaskans. You know, so it was set up by the Alaskan people to provide a health service to their community, and to bring it back to our area. There was Raukura, sort of was one of the real ideas that we had when we saw what was happening around the world, actually. It was the first time that we as a community created Raukura Hauora, and to provide my health services to our community and to the tribe. It's grown quite big at the moment. So it was a big challenge, that one.
And then another extension of your commitment to seeing a health model that would work within the Niue context for our people on our own terms was the Waitangi Tribunal role and stance that you took, and also being able to draw on the Nuka relationship and model, leading to at least the start of Te Aka Whaiora. Can you just explain kind of the Waitangi Tribunal kind of approach that you took?
That was a tribunal we had at Turangawaewae. And the reasons why I brought Turangawaewae, because of Mahinarangi. In 1938, when we decided to have a health system, it was the first health system in Māori. And on the 11th hour, the government decided not to give a license to practice. And that's why we took the hearing to Turangawaewae. And we had a very good supporter from around the world who came to support us, especially from Alaska, because they came to support us as well. You know, and one of the things I liked about that was that, and I think they got a bit of a shock, the tribunal did. I brought Rakamanga in to perform, but there was just an idea that if we put the kura in there, it was not only about health, but it's about education. And I knew that they got a surprise, and so did I, because I wasn't too sure it was going to work, but it did. It gave them an idea that there was other things than just health. It was about providing service to the children that we brought to the tribunal and said, look, this is an opportunity for our children to see what was going on behind the scene of the tribunal. And they performed very well. There was a surprise, I think. Linda Smith was one of them that was on the tribunal. She was, there's quite a few of them actually. But I think they were I think they were excited about the tribunal itself. Tuku and I did and Ramanam did the presentation to the tribunal. Yeah, that was...
So your community leadership in terms of that early foundational thinking around what health service looks like and could look like, moving through the layers of community, then across the iwi, and then having nationwide impact, I think can be well traced. But also education. I think Barbara Harrison
had a lot to play to that. And it was one of the good things I liked about Barbara, because when I brought the idea that we should, because I'm not a fluent speaker, because when I went to Rakamanga, you know, it was a different game. You were Rakamanga native school, and I had a problem about that. So when I started the wharakura Rakamanga, not one teacher from Rakamanga would come, from Tainui, would come with me. Not one. And I went to Dave Pangpo was one, Fred Carr from Kawhia was another one. And they said no. I said, oh, yeah, okay. So I went and talked to...
Rose Pere? No.
Yeah, Rose Pere. Rose Pere was on the Ministry of Education. And when I went to her, it was Rose Pere that stood up and said, yes, Timi, what do you want? I said, I want to develop a kura kaupapa. And she said, oh, yeah. So she was the first one that allowed me to put but I couldn't speak Māori, so I said to Poye, you go and select a teacher. Because the first one that came was a fellow called Charlton. He was us for 6 months. And then he came to see me. He said, I can't do this. I said, if you can't do this, you better leave. He said, well, you can't sack me. He said, well, watch me. So I brought Sidin from Matamatua to go to the court, you see. And then when we got to the court, the judge said to me, can you speak Māori? And Mr. Maipi, and I knew I couldn't, but I gave a tauparapa. Tue runga, tue roro, ka runga te pō, ka runga te ao te wānanga. And I said, okay, you can speak but I wasn't. And then that's how I got rid of Charlton. And then I sent to Poe, because when he went in the first time, they decided who the teacher would be for Rakamanga. And that's how I got the guy Charlton. So I said, Poe, you go in and interview. And that's how we got
Pen Bird.
Rose Peter said, who do you want then? And I said, oh, well, hang on, the Poe will come in. And she supported Pen Bird, and Pen Bird was outstanding. He was outstanding. And so he came in, and that was the beginning of the wharekura, but Barbara was behind us putting the plane together. That was the beauty of Barbara. She sat with us, and then of course there was development. But when Tim came in and brought Barney in, Joe Harawira, Wiha, they were all the teachers from outside. They were the only ones who would come to the party. So we had people from outside of Waikato teaching Māori to us because Alan didn't want to do it. And I think I understand why, because they didn't know how to do it. They were good teachers, but I don't think they had the quality to lead. That was my understanding of it anyway.
I take you back to the community level because at the time, and you were moving into the board as well, you had the Wāhi report, the Hutley Power Station report, the Tainui report, and then off that the Tainui Education Plan, and then the Tainui Health Plan. And all of that thinking, and feels like Wāhi was the experiment, came through into the Trust Board and then helped the Trust Board figure out what the future needed to look like.
I think that was a brilliant of your dad. He brought the right people in to do the right things for us. So Ken Egan came in to do the Tainui report. So there was the report is out now. I can't go back and remember everything that was in there, but he was one. And then Barbara came in and helped us to develop the wharekura o rākaumanga, someone from outside. And then Corin Woods came in from America and helped us to develop. That was the brilliance of your dad, actually. Him and I were having fights too. There wasn't all, loving thing. There were battles.
I'll come back to that because I think there was healthy respect, even though you didn't agree on everything. And let's move to that place. When you were on the Trust Board and everyone was going through the process of thinking about the Raupatu and what to do, can you remember the discussions that were taking place and the strategy and how things were pushed forward?
Yeah, I think, there was Hori Forbes. There was a lot of people in there that actually helped us to put, but your dad was the sort of director of what we would do and how we would move forward to challenge the Crown at the time. So we had some very good Pomoke. There was another one, John Kamaru, like I said, Isla Nottingham and Dean Bell. There was this sort of the plan going forward that your father wanted. We had to do it on the Trust Board, for example, because, I just want to go back to something before I go there. I was up here with Don Favel's farewell. Or no, she was giving some dance for long ago, it was about 2 weeks ago. They honoured her for what she was doing. So I came to that and I thought to myself, how lucky they were. Because, when we started with the Trust, we had nothing. We borrowed money from the bank. We worked on the bank there. And each time we'd bring the bank manager to help us out to make sure that we were on the right track. But I just thought that it was interesting to see what we have now and the challenge we had at the time.
Let me take you to, I think, a significant moment that preceded the settlement, but it got the momentum moving towards addressing these historical claims, and that's the 1984 Hikoi to Waitangi. Can you remember what was happening at the time and the roles that you played? But I really want to maybe bring out both you and Dad were quite passionate men, didn't agree all the time, possibly not any of the time, but there was a healthy and robust level of accountability around the discussions that were taking place. But that 1984 hikoi to Waitangi, what can you recall?
That was, that was, because we all had red hats, eh? That's how they identified us. Everybody had a red hat. So on the way to Waitangi, we wanted to go up to Bastion Point, but your father said, you're here for one thing, is Waitangi. Because I was belonged, I was part of that too. Now that was when we had our debate. So there was an argument between him, myself, and Eva in the caravan. I tell you, it was heated discussion. But at the end of the day, I thought that he was right. We were there for one thing. It was for that march to Waitangi. Well,
Well, so one of the things that I remember, we were busy, we just started Raupatu on a Waihi Pā, and we decided to take a caravan up, a health caravan, and I drove it actually. I towed it, was Umi's caravan. And that was just amazing. So there was just this whole enthusiasm from within the Waihi Pā, and so we were all excited to go. We were taking our babies up, and it was absolutely amazing. And we just followed on through. But I just want to make another comment about how just probably prior to that, in the late 70s, when we were busy with the power station, and Dad could see that there was a lot of action that had to happen within our little community, and he appointed myself, Poya, Te Poya, Mary, and I'm not sure, Tūtata maybe at the time, and we were to go on a forum, a community forum. And he wanted us to just sort of be aware locally what was going to happen, because we had to do a lot of surveys to ask the community if we wanted the power site, blah, blah, blah. And I remember some of the groups pulled out of the forum about flood protection. And I just have to mention this. And I remember we had to continue on. We were the only group that stayed on, was the Māori representative. So you had the local council moved away, the Federated Farmers moved away, and we carried on. And Bob, your dad, kept saying, make sure you go to those forum meetings, make sure you go. Anyway, hence what happened, of course, the flood protection was built, and everything happened down at the marae. And I can remember about 10, 15 years later, when it had a bad downfall, it poured and it was really bad. But our marae was wet, but we didn't flood. The farmers flooded, the community flooded, the local college flooded. And that came back to me as a young mum, not understanding how important it was that we were represented on that forum. And it was because Dad insisted so much that we were going to fight to get the flood protection done. And the battle happened, and hence that was the result. So I feel really proud that we were a part of that group. And 15, 20 years later, we proved the point. Dad proved the point that by staying there and fighting the battle, and not the best of the best, but so since then the farmers and the local council had to build up their flood protection.
Let's just go back to the march, if I can.
Oh, sorry.
We were up at the marae, and your father went off and had a discussion with somebody. We didn't know who that was. Anyway, in the morning, he left us. And then we were still at the marae, and I was marching along. And then one of the harawira came and said, "What the hell are you fellas doing?" I said, "What? What do you mean? We're marching." He said, "No, they're going across going to cross, the bridge was locked, you see." So he took our team across in the boat to get across to the marae. So, we were at the back getting abused for something we knew nothing about. We all had our red hats. But he went and did the negotiations with George Rawiri and the old one. And it was better. And I wondered, why the hell did he leave us out? But it made sense to me, because if I'd have talked to the others, there would have been an uproar. So he took his own. But I was pissed off big time because I didn't know. But I could understand that years later, Eva and I were sitting at the back marching, and they were saying, "You assholes." To say you had to think outside the square to try to tell the government, "You're not going to tell us what to do. We come here for a reason." And it made sense to me, but we were told to, but he took a team across.
But I guess, there was an element maybe of assumed trust that was affected why he did that. But I want to come back to Eva and the robust debates that she would have participated in on all fronts within the iwi, sometimes against the iwi, but always in front. I want to really ask you about her qualities of disagreement, debate, and what you witnessed.
Yeah, I think Eva had it not only with us as a tribe there, he had it with her own family. Her brother, I just forget his name.
Sam.
Huh?
Sam.
Yes, Sam. So Sam was him and Eva. Eva was doing one thing about the Raglan Golf Course, and he was opposing her. So Eva and I sat at before the protest took place on the Raglan Golf Course. We had a discussion about 2 o'clock in the morning. And because Dunby Haka said, what I want to do is to blow this bridge up. See the bridge coming across. He said, I'm going to blow this bridge up. While he was talking, I knew he couldn't do it. So Eva pulled me out about 4 o'clock in the morning. He said, hey, they're going to blow the bridge up. I said, hey. He said, oh, Dunby Haka. And I said, don't worry about it. He hasn't got a bomb. But that was the kind of person he was, eh? But Eva was a bit worried about that. So when the time came on the Raglan Golf Course, Sid came to support us. As soon as he got the car, he got arrested straight away. And then Eva's husband fell off the tree because he was watching from the tree. He fell in the tree and he got arrested and was taken. It was Neil Watt and his brother, Jim. He was the police officer. He was terrible because he was one of the police officers that decided to arrest people. So Sid went in. Corin's husband. So he got arrested. And then, of course, when I went back to the marae, she said, where's I? I said, I don't know. So he was in jail. But, after a while he came up. He was a lovely man. But you see, all of that was going on in our community. But the government at the time was terrible, on the Muldoon in particular.
Can I fast forward you to the day of the settlement and the signing at Tūranga Waiwai? Where were you and what did you observe? What did you see?
I think that was my highlight. My highlight was 2 things. Was that, your father made a few comments and he defended what the hoki whenua mai. I think that was and I heard the old people behind me say, that was brilliant. He didn't say much, but it made sense, What's taken must be returned. That was, and it was short and the place was packed. I think that was one of my major highlights with all the women. I got a photo of it here. We were sitting at the back and all the tribal members who said, that was just an amazing day.
And our kids from Rākaumanga getting up to do the haka. When you saw that, knowing the whakapapa of Rākaumanga Native School becoming a kura kaupapa and a whare kura, and when those kids got up and did the haka on the marae, what was going through your mind?
Well, it looked at, what a wonderful experience, eh? For me to see, after all those times and the battles that we had, that our own children were part of that journey and doing that haka at that time. This was outstanding. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I think people were quite hopeful when the settlement was signed.
Yeah. Well, it was something, one of the first ever, eh? And it was just...
Well, you had to look behind. There was Tipu and Oregon. There were a lot of...
support, from...
There was a lot of support, Denise Henry, Shani Lyons.
But even amongst other Raupatu iwi, like Taranaki, like Ngāti Awa, there would have been a lot of hope at the time that things could be at least,
It gave all the other tribes a chance to say, they can do it, we can do it. And that was one of the things I think I liked about your father. He actually gave information to Steve Regan. He had them in the room. From Taranaki, I just can't remember the people that came from there.
Sam Raumati?
Sam Raumati.
Absolutely, 40 years ago now. Gosh, 30 years, amazing.
Yes.
Actually, and I'm not too sure, but I think there might have been a little bit of a protest outside that day. And I remember, and Eva was out there. And I went out and I just couldn't understand why. I think she had a little support group around, and I thought, from the extreme of celebration inside and outside was just a little bit of disorder, not enough to really take up much attention, but enough to be upset about why. I think that was probably a bit of a downer, but we carried on back inside and continued the celebration that was happening. And it was like the impossible, He was, and here we,
Well, we had our own internals, eh?
Yeah.
We had our own internals. Eva was very vocal about that too. And in many ways I thought Eva had a point, but it wasn't strong enough to change or to stop what was happening. Yeah.
I think there would have been, there were a number of stories around that time.
Yeah.
I can remember Dad going to Poihakena to explain the settlement, and Eva was sitting at the back, and You know, she explained her whakaro. I always kind of wondered why he didn't try and do everything because, you know, Raglan, the harbours were outstanding, the river was outstanding and things like this. He said it's just too hard.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
It's too
it
hard. He
was.
couldn't achieve everything for everybody, but he could at least do one part. But I do recall that when Eva was outside the gate,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dad felt quite sad about that.
it was,
He had
it
a
was.
huge
Yeah,
amount of
yeah,
respect for her. If you were to think about the challenge years, and you know we don't have to go all into the depth of it, but if you think about those challenge years and what was happening to us, can you make sense of that when you reflect back on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That was outstanding, I
Yeah.
thought. I thought, you know, with all the challenges they had, and you see what's happening now, well, hey, what can you say about it? It was just outstanding.
yeah. You know, those years when we were taking ourselves to court, for example,
Yeah.
moving from the old trust board structure to the new Kohanga Nui structure in Te Arataura, and then that fighting that took place. I think we have to learn from it in order to move forward. But what was the dynamic we were facing? Because it was very internal to ourselves.
There was a lot of challenges, from different people within the tribe itself. To the one that comes to mind is Hopo. There was a big challenge about that one because I think Ngāti Whawhake was one of them, or Robert Tukarenam anyway. They were battling Bob or us for the right to have hopupu. That was internal things that was going on. Is that the kind of question you're asking?
I'm hopeful that we won't ever have to go through the situation where we're taking ourselves to court, that we've learned.
Oh, yes.
And a part of that process, I think Shane had a hand in developing Hohau Te Rongo,
Oh, yeah.
so that we would have a tikanga way of addressing some ture challenges.
Yeah.
What I'd like to figure out is, do we have the capacity, after all of our lived experience and the challenges that we've been through, to heal through the hardest of what we did to ourselves? And if I go back to your, the Nuka model and that, and some of their models of healing intergenerational trauma and things like that, do we have the capacity to do that? And whether you've had any
Well,
thoughts?
when I look at those with that Ken to help us, Ken Egan, Barbara, Corin, who would we pick within the tribe to do what they did? I would find it hard to pick anyone in particular. Probably,
we've come through a system of being decolonised, And so, we're a prime born in the 40s, no Māori. You're not going to be speaking, you don't need to worry about being Māori. And so we've had to decolonise our whole thinking, and some of us rebelled, some of us have sort of moved in. And now I think the generations in front of us, your generation, that's our children, have, and now our grandchildren. So we think that it's a lot better for them than what we had, but it doesn't mean you get complacent. You still got to keep moving. Like Timi still out there fighting to stop, alcohol outlets in Huntley. And our kids are thinking, oh, come on, Dad, really? But it's so important. We've got to keep up with what's happening around us in our environment. The vaping shops, we've got 5, 6 in Huntley, we should only have 2. It's those sort of issues that we've got to really be up to, keep up with, so we can sort of live in our little world. And my mukas are fluent in te reo, and they've got this and they've got that, but there's still issues around us that we've got to, I think, and so their grandfather's still busy doing things, and it's just, we're so-called retired. I don't know what that means.
I tell you who I'd like to, I was trying to remember some of the people of the time. Brett Shepherd was one.
Yes.
He was outstanding for Tarapa. He did the Tarapa one. And one of the things I just found out today, or the other day, that we did a deal with a company over in Ruakura, and we gave away 120 years of the land. Is that right? I saw it in the paper.
That's the Brookfields.
Was that
deal.
When I look at, at the battles that we had to protect, and then there's 120 years of land being handed over to a company, didn't make sense to me. Does it make sense?
So I think that shows that we've got a lot more to do to ensure people are well informed about the decisions within the iwi.
There was. I mean,
jumping into
I understand that. What's that? Our company on up there. But I think Tuku was part of that. And
anyway, that's, yeah.
well, I mean, when you think about it, you have all these battles that's going on, and then just recently, when I read in the paper, you did a deal for $1 billion for 120 years.
And I think that's possibly the question that I'm asking is, what have we learnt over the last 30 years to ensure that we are going to be firm-footed when we make decisions for the next 30, 60, 90, 120 years? And to your point, have we lost the importance of communicating clearly as decisions are being made what the benefits are back to tribal members? Because we just don't have enough information in the public domain to comment, but we should. Because back in the day when you didn't have devices, you had to turn up to a hui. You know, how many things were said the same way at how many hui in order to make sure everybody at least heard the same story, eh?
Absolutely.
And I think we can't lose sight of the old practices, making sure people have the information.
Is it a good practice? Because I thought that after fighting for all those years for land, and then we give one away for 100. It may be small, but that wasn't the point. The point was, could there have been a better deal to protect the land going over to foreigners for 120 years?
And I think these are exactly the questions that we have to foster in order to be clear about the decisions we're making. Eh? If I was to take you to just again, looking at the last 30 years of our settlement experience, what do you think are the high points for you that you've seen in terms of good things? Because I'm going to come back to the other question. What are the things that we shouldn't repeat?
I think this building was built and was for the right reasons. But you know what's happening with that? I think this building should be used for the purpose it was given. There might be some adjustments to it, but there's some value in having a college like this to provide information to the future that's coming through. And I think that somebody's got to lead this. This is what it was built for. It was, I understand it was for graduates with some degrees to be taught here. But at the same time, this should be used also for, bringing the community and say, talk about this place. Why we built it? What's happening? And if it's not happening, why? Ask the question why. Because everybody wants to know a beautiful place like this, for the purpose it was built for, it's not being used. Well, that's how I see it. Anyway.
No, well, that's a comment that many people have made. This is for intellectual rigour, making sure community marae development can happen and can sustain their mana motuaki vision. And perhaps, the tribe itself can commission its own research through its own place of knowledge. So I think those are all valid questions. Are there things that we shouldn't repeat as a result of our settlement experience? And I think you've pointed to one. Need to be very clear and open and transparent about decisions, critical decisions that impact on the future of the tribe. What about the people? Is there things that we could do better to support the next generation?
Yeah, just where I said from an education point of view, they seem to be complacent with what they got. They're sitting back and they say, well, it's always about the reo. It's not about just the reo. It's about what's happening for the future. It's about the political environment we're in, the challenges that we have with parties, different parties. Today is getting worse. I mean, it seems that way. It seems like that. And I think that this college should be, at least, if the teachers are not doing it in the schools, the senior students tiny students from around the country should come and talk to them. This is what's happening now. What's the future going to be like, or what's your role in the future for us? Because why do you think that we started the kura? It was to create people with the mind, who could speak fluently and challenge the governments of the day. It's not just about learning te reo. is learning how they can make an offer back to the tribe about the future. And I don't see it at the moment.
And I wonder whether or not we take for granted that, because I can remember sitting and doing workshops where Tainui was going to be able to do this way back 30 years ago, and now we're able to do it. But I think the expectation for maybe some of us is that they're going to do it all, but really we have to be a part of that too. And, it's amazing that we look out and we can see that and not in money terms, but the achievement that's happened. And I had the privilege of sitting in a presentation with Triku and Donna, and I was really blown away about all of the work that's happening within the tribe. And I think that, maybe this is Whakakitinga's job, this is a part of who, but I was really impressed. And I thought, 30 years later and what? And when I heard the presentation and I heard what was going on, I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is what's happened. And I don't think we can appreciate it ourselves. I'm not too sure. But, you have to look around the country with it's in Waikato, the kuras that are happening, the activities that are going on. I would like to see probably a little bit more of us owning a bit more rather than being owned in town. We could have maybe a few more. But that's something that we have to build ourselves. We can't expect people at a staff, this is my opinion, at the staff to be able to do this, and do everything, because I think that's a big expectation. And how involved should we be as a community, to be delivering as well. So I just think it's amazing. I think we've got a beautiful future ahead of us, but we've got to get back our land throughout the motu. We've got to reclaim our land back. Sorry.
Before my last question to you, I just want to ask you, because I observed that, again, as your relationship with Dad in particular was quite a robust one. You've said that word. I would say passionate, right to the point of bitter and stubborn sometimes. But is there one big debate or disagreement that you have that you think, well, I'm glad I did that with him? Because not many people had the courage to take him face on. You did.
We were sitting in a board meeting and he put this on the screen. And he said, these are the ones that are, I forget what he called me. Anyway, there were three of us. There was me, her, and Tutata. And when I saw that we were doing something wrong, I jumped out of my seat and I jumped over the thing, and couple Clark, he stopped. Hey, stop it. I said, no, he accused me of things. So I jumped across and I was going to punch him. I'd never forget that one. And a couple Clark said, hey, well, what's going on? I said, he just accused me. Look, he's on the board there. Can't you see it? And I was swearing.
And what was his response?
Look, he's a crazy fella. Forget that crazy fella.
I think many would agree that who saw that he had very strong views, but there was still a respect behind that. And I think possibly your courage to take him on was your connection, both of your deep connection back to Wāhi.
Yeah.
Because
with the middle
was like the football field, so to speak. Is there a legacy aspiration that you have for your mokopuna for the next 30 years going forward? Because they will be taking us forward.
Well, that's the question I ask of you. What contribution will you make to take our people forward? Because you've been with your father, you've been in politics, you know the challenges. And I would ask of you is, what contribution will you make to follow your father's legacy? Because our children are getting brilliant, but the problem is what Bram is saying. There's alcohol, there's drugs, there's all those things that are in front of us as well. So unless we bring them together, and that's something I asked of you, is there are some brilliant students around the country of Taino descent. And I give one example of Alex Hope's daughter that just became a judge. And they came from Makuru. And then you got our queen here, who's from, those people should be brought in there and they should be challenged. What's your future role for the people of Tainui? And I think, going back to you, your father and I had this debate, so I'm going to ask you, what contribution will you make to help us, because you knew what your father wanted. You know better than anyone. And this place was one of those. And I know that there's some issues there, but those issues that should be challenged. I'm happy to get part of that, but if not, but I just think, what a waste. What a waste. If we can't use this place to have, like, you've got judges now, you've got politicians, you've got a queen, you've got other great students out there that could come and support you for this place. It's a waste. And if we don't do something about this place, what's the point of having it? I'm disappointed, with that's why I wanted to go with me today, to say, well, what's he going to do about it? He's the tribal leader. What's he going to do about it? It just seems that there's a little missing link here that I see. And that's leadership, doing the right thing for the right reasons for our people. And it's all over and while it seems it's here, it's there, I'm not too sure.
But my motto has always been that leaders are only leaders of their followers. And my motto is that with us, however we've challenged ourselves in our lives with our whānau, is that they're only as good as we are. So you're only as good as the people that support you, and that we have to get more past the fact of not just being on the sideline and watching, but actually being active. And I think and I believe that this is where our mokopunas are going to be going, but they still need that not direction, dare I say, but they still need that support, tautoko. And it is a different world. My mokas keep reminding me, Nana, you wash nappies, but we don't have to anymore. And I'm saying, well, you're killing the environment. But anyway, that's another issue. And it's true. And I can remember Timi coming back from lots of huis, and they'd all moan about our beautiful fire. To the old lady Turner, she just had so much wisdom, but she was outspoken and she spoke.
She was good.
She was amazing. And it wasn't until later on that people think, oh, yes. But at the time, maybe Eva's ideas were the same. She was too old, and what did she know? And it's not propping us oldie goldies up, but it's just acknowledging that if we can awhi and tautoko what's around us, but being positive about the direction.
So it's one of the places Huakina could do more. I went there the other day, and it was like treating you like a stranger. Who are you coming in here? I said to myself, this place was built for a reason.
And we're living
it wasn't, that behaviour. I thought, what kind of behaviour is that? You see, things have been changing, eh? And I think that nobody's telling them what they were there for. What's the purpose of having good? What's the purpose of Raukawa? What's the purpose of this college? What's the purpose of having board members sitting at the table? I thought, you've got the likes of Brett Shepherd still around. He's brilliant, that young man. Brilliant. And I thought, he's still alive. It costs a lot of money to have him, but...
Well, in this conversation, you've brought together a lot of reflections on the last 30 years, but also tupuna wisdom for mokopuna. And I want to thank you for that, and the challenge that you've put out to the next generation about what are we going to do for the next 30 years. So thank you. Importantly, I think what you've demonstrated as a community leader, Timi, is how to test the rigour of someone's thinking and be in front all the time. So I want to mihi to you for that. And Whairamari, I want to mihi to you because you've been a constant backbone of support and reinforcement of family values, and mana motuhake and health is ultimate. I'll share one memory with you. I can remember when you were all energetic as our health nurse, and you came to the marae and said, right, no more raro, we're going to put lemon in water, and that's what everyone's going to have, and everyone thought that was like the biggest change ever. But we all remember it, and now, look on our tipu, more often than not we have water. So mihi ana ki a koe ki a kōrua. Tēnā koutou.